Hey guys, my name is Ali Al-Kargouli. I am a systems engineer at the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab. In this video, I'm going to show you 4 steps that you can use to build systems in your life, set systems in your life that complement the goals that you have. And this is a video that I really did not want to make, but I had to make because I watched a couple videos on YouTube on setting systems. And with all due respect, like a lot of these people are well-intentioned, but they either don't fully understand what systems are, or they don't really talk about something very, very important, which is what happens when the system breaks, right? What happens when the system fails? And you've likely experienced this. Like you set a goal and you set a system and you're like, okay, you stick to the schedule for like a week or two, and then you fall off. And then you're like, kind of, I don't know, back to the same old behaviors, whatnot. No one really talks about that. So it's compelled me to make this video. So in this video, not only am I going to explain to you the most efficient, proper way to build systems in your life, but also what happens when the systems break, right? And what can you do to not only have the mentality of that, okay, like the systems are going to be fixed, but actually how do you gain from having the systems break, right? How do you develop an anti-fragile mindset? And if you know what anti-fragile means, basically anti-fragile is the opposite. Well, when you think of fragile, fragile means something that breaks, right? The opposite of fragile is robust. Robust is something that does not break. But anti-fragile is something that gains from breaking. So I'm going to not only teach you how to build systems properly, I'm going to teach you how to build systems that when they break, you gain from that as a person, and you grow. And like, how cool is that? Is that when things go wrong, it actually benefits you rather than harms you. Okay. Now, I'm someone who has built a lot of systems in my life. I work obviously at NASA as a systems engineer, but I've also built systems that help me run my part-time online business, help me run 2 YouTube channels, help me do a lot of cool stuff. So anyway, enough talking about me, enough talking about any of that. Let's go ahead and dive into the systems. So the first step before you go ahead and create a system is you still need to develop a goal. And this is a big misconception, is that like people say, oh, like set goals instead of systems. I think that is like to an extent accurate, but that can be a little bit misleading for people because the system serves to achieve the goal, right? Like without having a clear defined goal, there's no point in building a system. And I'll give you examples. Like in my job at NASA, I am building systems right now. I'm building software systems. I'm building hardware systems. But the only reason those systems exist in the first place, the only reason we're building that software and hardware is to achieve a certain goal. Like in my case, we're launching an astronomy telescope, for example, right now. And so without having a clear goal or having like clarity on what you actually want in life, there's almost no point in building a system because where's the system going to lead you? And I know what some people say, well, no, I just want like a system to maintain my habits and behavior. Well, then you have a goal of maintaining like certain habits and behavior, and the system only serves to achieve that. So as much as like goal setting is important, some people are like, oh, no, don't set goals at all, completely ditch the goals. I honestly disagree. I think you should have the goal, because based on the goal, we're going to build the whole system around that. But before we go ahead and build the system, there's a step in between. Once you write down the goal, you have to basically write out the identity of the person that achieves that goal effortlessly, right? So for example, if your goal is to start and grow a business while working a part-time job, right? You want to think about what are the traits needed, what are the habits, behaviors, tendencies needed by a person in order to achieve that. And you can write them down, right? You can basically draw out like a little character, like a fictional character. It does not have to be you. It just could be like out of the box. What would someone need to do in order to achieve that? And you can start writing the habits and traits, and you can say, okay, this is someone who like does not get tired often, or someone who has like good amounts of energy such that they can balance full-time job while also having being able to create a system. And you can basically write a set of these 10. This person, I don't know, exercises so they can get energy. This person eats clean food and avoids junk food, because that way they can again maintain their energy and focus. So you can start writing out the identity of the person that helps achieve this goal, right? Because this identity is going to be very crucial in building the systems. There's another misconception, is people skip immediately from goal to system. And I think that's kind of a mistake. You kind of want to first identify who do you want to become to achieve that goal. But then once you figure that out, then we go ahead and build the systems around that. Okay. So basically you write out what your goal is, you figure out who it is you need to become. Although I don't really like the phrase need to become, because you're already great. You already have it in you. You just need to modify behaviors, tendencies. You need to have systems. So I would definitely make sure you don't lean in too heavy on the, oh, like I am not good enough and I need to like become something else. Like make sure that does not come from a place of like self-hatred or self-loathing. Like make sure that comes from a place of self-love, which is like I love who I am, but like I need to adopt these habits and tendencies. So I develop that robust identity. Okay, it's just very important that I throw that out there. Okay, so now once you have the goal and once you have the identity, so again, let's say sticking with the example I had, your goal is to build a part-time business while having a full-time job. Let's say the identity you need is like needs to be someone who has high energy, who has great time management skills, who's able to manage their time effortlessly, who still has time for their family and friends, despite running a business and despite having a full-time job. And once you do that, then you go ahead and build the system. So this is where we get into the fun stuff. So systems are general, like this is kind of another misconception about systems. There's a difference between a system and a process. So a lot of times when people say system, what they really mean is a process, right? So a process is basically like a set of steps you take to achieve something, right? A process is really what describes like the behavior or the things that need to happen. And it's basically like it goes in a single line, like step one, step two, step three. The moment you introduce feedback, like we're about to do over here, then you kind of have a system that's self-sustained on its own. So what I want you to think about is that a system is self-sustained on its own. It's basically made up. It's a thing that's made up of a bunch of parts, and it's basically self-sustained, while a process is basically like a series of steps that you need to take. In essence, these 4 steps that we're taking system setting, this is a process right here. What I'm describing to you is a process, but it involves building a system. So first, once you figure out what the identity is that helps achieve the goal, the first step in the system is defining what the inputs are, right? So again, let's say you're someone who wants to grow a business part-time while working a full-time job. The inputs could be that you allocate, for example, 1 hour per day to work on your business, and within that like inputs, you allocate sub inputs such as like you need to do market research, you need to figure out what your offer is, you need to figure out I don't know, like what kind of content you want to make, if you want to create content, things of that nature. Then once you go ahead and define the inputs, you go and build a process in place, right? And you say, okay, in order for me to allocate time to sit down and work on my business, I'm gonna build a process where, like, step one, for example, I'm gonna put my phone away. Step two, I'm gonna have my kind of like how I have over here, my tabs organized in a way where I can easily access where I need to uh, figure out what I need to do, or like my calendar or things of that nature. You basically write down the process of like what it's like to actually go through the motion of achieving this input, right? Step by step. And then once you go ahead and do these things, then you're going to have an output, right? You're going to have some type of result. Now, based on this output, you're going to get feedback, right? You're going to give yourself that feedback, and you're going to go back to that same input. This is the first place where people go wrong. This is the first feedback loop I want to talk to you about before the more important one a little bit later, which is once people define their inputs and go through the process and they don't get the output that they desire, people get discouraged. And to me, that is very, very heartbreaking, because a lot of times that feedback is actually gold. Like there's really 2 mindsets that you can adopt here. And this is something I learned at SpaceX prior to my getting my job at NASA. I was interviewing at SpaceX, and when I was inside of SpaceX, I learned something that was really, really valuable about feedback, which is the SpaceX engineers would basically build their system, have the inputs, outputs, and process, and they would perform it. But their relationship with failure and with things going wrong was something I've never seen anywhere else before. Like they would basically intentionally get things wrong, or like they would intentionally set things for failure such that they can figure out why things went wrong, go and refine the inputs, process, and outputs. So once you start building your system, then and you have your inputs, process, output in place, you want to constantly examine why the output like is not the output that you're desiring. For example, again, let's say I don't know, after like few days of adopting certain inputs and having the right process in place, your output is like, I don't know, your YouTube videos are still not getting views, or like your paid ads are not performing, or like you're not losing weight, or like you're still not spending enough time with your family, you're still not achieving the desired output, right? You're going to have basically feedback based on how that goes, and then you can go in and assess your inputs, and you can ask, okay, am I doing the right things, or am I just being impatient, or am I just kind of not really thinking about this properly. So do not be afraid that the outputs are not going to be the results that you desire, right? Now, once you go ahead and do that and build the system in place, then the very last step, which is my absolute failure, absolute favorite, is the failure of this entire system or this entire process. So what we're doing over here is we're defining a system that helps you achieve some type of identity, that achieves some type of goal. But then here's the part where I think a lot of people do not address is what happens when this entire thing fails. And when I mean about like, I mean this entire process, not just the system that you set in place for having like a schedule or like executing certain behavior. What happens when you kind of forget about the whole thing, this entire thing altogether, or like you stop doing this thing altogether? Well, this is where it is extremely important to have like a diagnostician hat and to have a problem solver hat and have some introspection. And because once you set up this process and build it and it does not work, this is a huge opportunity for you to diagnose where things went wrong in those three areas that we discussed. Was it a goal problem? Was it an identity problem? Or was it a system problem? Now, what that's going to do is it's going to shift your mind psychologically from discouragement to like intrigue, to excitement. Because now instead of saying, oh my God, I built this entire thing and now I kind of like, oh, I didn't stick to it. The moment you realize you did not stick to it, you can ask yourself, why did I not stick to it? And there's often three reasons why people don't stick to it. One is the goal in of itself. Like, what if the goal is not actually what you want? What if the goal doesn't excite you? What if the goal doesn't motivate you? It's very, very important that you choose the goal that actually motivates you, excites you. And it's very important that you set it to be like not too long term, or like it's so far in the future that you don't feel motivated, not too short term, where like it's kind of like like who cares. It has to be like just the right amount of like inspirational but doable, right? That's one area um, of diagnosis. Second problem is you can say, okay, well, what was like what was the sets of behaviors that I chose? What if that's not like realistic or practical, or that's not what I want deep down? There's a mistake I see people doing all the time is that, for example, let's say someone who's like very out of shape, and they set like an identity goal of like, oh, I'm someone who does 100 push-ups every single day, and they haven't done a push-ups in like, I don't know, 5-10 years. And like that's not a really practical identity to adopt off the path of like, I think what we really want is to develop gradual changes in identity. And yes, it's good to have the identity of like someone you really, really want to be, and it has to be something extreme and inspirational. But again, you have to balance it with the idea of, I want to be someone who's like doing these things, but like in a way that is practical and believable for my brain. And finally, this is my favorite part, is like once you have these two things in check and your system fails, then you can ask yourself, okay, why did the system fail? And maybe the system in of itself is not really good. Maybe my environment is not well optimized to enforce the system. Maybe I don't have reminders in place. Maybe I have other distractions, such as my phone, or such as my computer, or such as toxic people in my life. Like then you can really go ahead and diagnose the problem that went wrong. So the key idea here is that once you set the goal, you set the identity, and you set the system, you really want to always examine one, anticipate that things are probably gonna go wrong, like have clear expectations that things are gonna go wrong. And then once things do go wrong, then you can go ahead and see what you want to do about that, and basically evaluate why things went wrong. Use the failure and the feedback as something that propels you forward, rather than something that discourages you, holds you back, and you say, oh, this thing did not work out again. That being said, if you're someone who wants to build systems in your business or in your life, I'll put a link below to a short video where you can work with me directly to build systems in your business or in your life. Otherwise, you can go ahead and watch the rest of my videos. Stay tuned for more videos. I'm going to be making a lot more content around things like system settings, systems thinking. I'm kind of going to dive really deep into that kind of topic. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and leave a comment and let me know so I can make sure that those are videos they're interested in. But yeah, that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace, love.